This tank has been running now for just over 6 months, and probably the part that's changed the most in that time is down in the sump. I've added things, I've removed things, I've even moved things around, and gradually got the sump to a point where I'm really happy with how it works. So today, rather than running through a polished equipment list, I thought we'd open up the cabinet and I'll show you exactly what's running down below in my Red Sea Reefer 200G3. I'll tell you why I've chosen each piece of equipment, what's worked, and also what hasn't. Welcome back, I'm ReefATO, and let's get into it and open up that cabinet. But before we do, I just wanted to say a quick note. Thanks to everyone for all the feedback that you've given me on the previous videos. Because of your feedback, I've ditched the AI voiceover and I'm using my own voice now. Let me know in the comments if you preferred the AI or if my voice will do for you. Let's get that cabinet open. So with the cabinet doors open, we can see inside into the sump section. I will take the camera off the tripod at some point and we'll go and poke around in there, but just wanted to give you a quick overview of how it looks before we did that, and the camera got a little bit shaky. So this is a standard Reefer 200G3 sump. We've had this system running for just over 6 months now, as I mentioned in the intro. My goal has always been simple, to keep the filtration as reliable as possible and as simple to maintain as possible. And what we'll do next is we'll go into the major components and see how the water flows through the sump before returning up to the display tank. So we can see at the back here we've got the down pipes. There's the 2 down pipes. You've got your emergency drain, which is the one on the left, and then your main drain, which is on the right. This has got the new and improved gate valve on it, which I must say has been absolutely brilliant for tweaking water levels in the rear chamber to make sure there's no gurgling noise, keeps the tank really nice and quiet. One issue I did have is this connection here, which you might just be able to see, it might just be a little bit dark, where the flexible hose meets the hard piping. Originally I didn't quite get enough glue on the inside of the pipe when I was putting the tank together, so it did cause a leak. I had to take that off afterwards, dry everything out and reseal that. Water runs down the flexible hosing into this elbow joint down here, which feeds into the roller mat, the reef mat. Can't exactly remember what number it is, but it's not the nano one, it's the one above. I'll pop that on the screen. Brilliant piece of kit, you can see. We're pulling lots of crud out of the tank, for want of a better word, that you wouldn't really want in there. And for me, it is just a hell of a lot easier than washing and changing filter socks or filter floss regularly. In general, I use around 7 to 15 centimeters a day of the roller mat, so it lasts for a good couple of months each roll, and they are pretty inexpensive to replace. So something I've been really happy with. So after exiting the reef mat, the water flows into the main sump section, and what you'll be able to see within that, hopefully, is I have got a substantial amount of live rock inside that main section, and this provides a really large surface area for bacteria and microorganisms. That's something I'm a really big fan of. I do like live rock, that old school mentality, and this rock particularly came out of a really mature system. It was running for about 14 years, so lots of good biome on there, and it gives that real extra boost to the biological filtration within the tank. So moving on to the next major piece of equipment would be the skimmer. You can see here I've gone for the Bubble Magus G5. A few reasons that I went for the Bubble Magus G5. One of the main reasons was the footprint. As you can see by the way I'm filming, the sump inside the Red Sea Reefer G3 200 isn't the largest sump in the world, great for the system, but when it comes to adding big pieces of equipment, you don't really have the biggest option in the world. Out of the skimmers that I'd looked at, the G5 had some really good reviews. I've used Bubble Magus before in the past. They're quite reliable, very good value for money, and as you hopefully should be able to see, it's pulling out some really good skimmet, and has done from the moment I put it in. Actually, there was no settling in period, just a little bit of fine tuning over the first few days of it running. You may have noticed already when I was showing the live rock, and apologies for the sound of the squeaky chair, that we have a small black object. When I say small, it's actually quite long, if you can see down there. This is actually a UV steriliser, comes from All Pond Solutions. What it does is it gives me some flow inside my sump, which I think is quite important when you're running quite a lot of live rock in the sump. And I do like to run a touch of UV, as we spoke about earlier on, with space being at a premium. This kind of compact design of a UV pump. It works really well for me. My water quality has been really, really good. I like to have really gin clear water, and so I find running the ReefMat and a small UV really gives me that. Next thing worth mentioning is obviously heating, a really important component of keeping a reef tank, especially in the UK where it's not the warmest of places, although we have just had a bit of a hot spell. I'm running the Inkbird temperature controller. You can see that up in the corner there. That keeps a track of the temperature. There's a couple of probes that go down into the sump connected to a couple of heaters. I don't know if you can see the heaters because they are underneath the UV steriliser and it is cramped in there. But I run two heaters, two 300 watt heaters, just for redundancy. Anything goes wrong with one heater, we've still got the other heater as backup. So I'm really having to suspend my camera over the sump now to try and get you a sneak peek of the return pump that we're using here. The Red Sea Reefer return pump. It's the 4000. What I'll do is I'll just come back out of there. You can see the white flexible hose running all the way up to the bulkhead where the water returns to the main tank. Really reliable return pump, not had any issues with it. Control box for that. And you can see I'm running that on 40%, which I find gives a tank this size absolutely plenty of flow. I suppose if you're keeping SPS corals, you'd maybe want to ramp that up a little bit. But in terms of turnover rate for the actual system, I feel like 40% is absolutely more than enough. The last piece of actual equipment to mention within the sump is the auto top-up system. I'm using the ReefATO from Red Sea. The top-up system came with the Aquarium when I purchased it. Found that to be one of the best I've ever used. Very simple system, comes with the ReefBeat app from Red Sea that it links up to, so you get to see all the logs of what's been topped up within the tank on a daily basis. It sits within the return chamber of the sump, just next to the return pump. There's a nice handy clip in the side where it just slots into. I went for the ReefCan 18, which is the 18 litre most expensive plastic bottle in the world. However, I would buy it again if given the chance, because we've spoken already about the lack of space within the sump, and getting something that would be able to take in 18 litres of water inside the sump with kind of everything thought out for fitting the ATO system to it in terms of lines, power cables. It is an actual blessing, and for my tank in general I get around 10 days out of the 18 litres that goes in there in topping up, and I do actually put kalkwasser mixture in there rather than just plain RODI water, keep my algae in a good place. The last piece of the puzzle when it comes to filtration in the sump. So you'll see some filter floss in a little bowl here. That's holding some GFO, some Rowaphos that's in a filter sock. Put it in a small piece of filter floss just in case there's any leakage, kind of red dust that comes off there even though we swill it well. And you'll see that the outlet of the small UV canister filter that we spoke about earlier is directly straight at that to kind of try and increase the flow of what's going through there on the GFO. I'm not sure you'll be able to see, but just behind, there we go, just behind the ReefMat there's also a bag of active carbon, and that's really everything inside the sump area that runs this reef tank. So that's an overview of my sump on the Red Sea Reefer G3200. One of the things that you'll learn quickly with a system of this size is you haven't got all the choice in the world because you are limited by space. But I actually think that's a good thing. We can often put pieces of equipment into our sump for the sake of putting a piece of equipment into our sump. And also, when you're shopping for a new skimmer, it really does limit your choices, because finding a skimmer with a small footprint that fits inside this sump can be a challenge, especially when you've got the ReefMat sat on the side of there. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is there anything you'd add, anything you'd take away? Have you got a G3200 and what are you running in your sump? I'd be really interested to know. Take it easy everyone, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.